This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, 212th Trooper, Sylar 1610, Rune Scribble and Papa Podo, and brought to you by Normandy 1998 who requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon or become a channel member, and select the Pickle Producer tier, since among other benefits, you'll get to make a video request every month, be it the continuation of an existing series or a brand new story. Now, before we get into today's story, I just want to ask you to do me a favor. Hit that like button, since it tells YouTube you enjoy what I do, and check whether you're subscribed, since only about a quarter of my viewers are, and it's a free way to keep up to date with all my content. In return, I'll do all I can to keep making regular quality content for you. Thanks, and let's hop in. Transformers 1 is, in my opinion, one of, if not the best piece of Transformers media to ever come out of the brand, since it manages to do something truly special, ground the story of the rise of Optimus Prime and Megatron in a deeply personal tragedy that makes both their doomed friendship and eventual enmity all the more poignant. It's a story I would certainly like to see more of, though with Hasbro having apparently no interest in making a sequel, I guess it's up to me to continue the story of Orion Pax and D-16. And rather than go full fanfiction mode, I decided to look for an existing Transformers property that could be adapted into a sequel, and luckily, I found one. While not covered in depth, Transformers Prime has a somewhat similar backstory for Optimus and Megatron, where they were once friends and comrades turned mortal enemies following a public disagreement over how Cybertron should be ruled, that resulted in Optimus being named to Prime while Megatron felt overlooked. This then kicked off the Great War and ultimately resulted in the Autobots and Decepticons coming to Earth where they found their newest battlefield, along with several human friends and foes. Though this backstory is not the only connection, as there are a lot of little Easter eggs specifically for Transformers Prime in Transformers 1. With the most notable being the theme of the Primes, which can be heard in The Fall, and which sounds distinctly like the Transformers Prime intro. Just give it a listen if you don't believe me. So, this got me thinking about how one would combine these two timelines, taking the best parts of both to create a cohesive narrative that continues the story of Orion Pax and D-16, while keeping the emotional richness. For starters, I would keep the core quartet of Transformers 1 present on Earth, which naturally means Optimus and Megatron as the leaders of their respective factions, along with the Leader 1 who would replace RC and serve as Optimus' trusted second-in-command, and B-127, also known as megatron, who would fill Bumblebee's spot, since they are the same bot just interpreted differently. Additionally, while I would keep Ratchet since he is referenced in Transformers 1, I would swap Bulkhead who does not appear in any capacity during the film, with none other than Darkwing. Now, before you get out your pitchforks and energon torches, hear me out. While there was a Decepticon named Darkwing referenced in one of the old cartoons, the Darkwing of Transformers 1 isn't a con. He's just a massive jerk, and a petty tyrant who is willing to follow the planetary power hierarchy rather than rise up in rebellion. That means when Orion became Optimus Prime, he also became Darkwing's boss, and since Darkwing had equal dislike for both Orion and D-16, it is most likely he would stay where he had some small position of power and security, thus making him an Autobot by default. This in turn creates a fascinating character dynamic between him and his former subordinate turned commander, while also allowing for the more nuanced style of morality seen in Transformers 1, where not every Autobot is a flawless bastion of virtue and not every Decepticon is an irrational power-hungry lunatic, since sometimes they're just bots like Darkwing or Elita trying to carve out their own little piece of the world. These would of course not be the only changes, but I believe we have enough to move into the actual narrative, which would begin with the movie-length pilot Darkness Rising. For the opening act, I imagine a lot would go the same as canon, with a hasty Autobot falling into a Decepticon trap and being subsequently murdered by Starscream. Though here it would not be Cliffjumper, but instead Optimus' old friend from the mines, Jazz, creating a deep sadness within the ranks, as he had been a foundational member of the Autobot cause, and his loss would prove that no bot is safe in war. However, in place of this loss, the Autobots would receive 3 new allies, Jack, Raph, and Miko, human children who were seen by the Decepticons, making them into targets. To this end, Optimus would assign each of them a partner and guardian, with the leader taking RC's role as Jack's partner and war-weary stoic veteran, Raph going with B-127, who he is more than happy to call Badassatron, creating an instant rapport between the pair as B's fast mouth matches Raph's fast brain. Also, yes, for clarity, B can still talk here, since it was his defining characteristic in Transformers 1. And finally, Miko goes with Darkwing, though this is the most contentious pairing, as the young renegade girl reminds the former mine overseer of a certain cocky smart-mouthed grunt he used to torment, so why in the Matrix's name would Prime give him someone like that? All the same, the trio of Autobots attempt to settle into their new roles, while contending with troubling news that after 3 years of absence, Megatron has returned. and he has apparently found something extremely dangerous that could turn the tide of the war. Tracking the Tyrant to a mine here on Earth, the Autobots, though particularly Optimus and Alita, witness Megatron's most depraved act yet, and one that suggests that their friend D-16 is truly lost forever, as Megatron desecrates Jazz's corpse by reanimating him through the power of Dark Energon, a stark descent from the noble bot who risked himself along with Orion to save Jazz from certain doom during a mine collapse. This sight breaks Optimus's spark, so that it is Alita who has to take charge, serving as the pragmatic right hand her commander needs by destroying the mining operation, and with it the Terracon version of Jazz, before they all flee back to base to reconvene. Here Optimus seeks the company of Alita as well as Darkwing, since they both knew Jazz as long as he did, and while Darkwing gruffly states that he never got along with the guy, so he's not about to start singing his praises now, Alita more compassionately acknowledges their shared pain and loss, reminding him that without that scrap-for-brains stunt he and Dee pulled back in the mines all those millions of stellar cycles ago, she never would have been demoted and wound up on their quest to find the Matrix, so Jazz will always be a part of their cause, and he'd want them to keep standing up for what's right, a sentiment Optimus agrees with, some of that old Orion teasing coming through as he reminds her of her "I'm better than you" pep talk, by claiming she always knew how to motivate him. And it is fortunate that Optimus is back in action, as Ratchet needs help with some of the tech they salvaged from the mine, which has been animated by Dark Energon 2, causing Optimus to come to a rather horrific conclusion. Megatron's plan isn't just to use the Dark Energon to empower himself, it's to revive the dead of Cybertron as his personal army. Racing off to find his former best friend, Optimus makes a desperate appeal not to do something so unspeakable, though this is just met by a snarl, as Megatron declares that Pax is too soft, and that he is only doing what needs to be done to ensure Cybertron lives again, now under the leadership of someone who faces the harshness of reality, not a fraud or a dreamer. With this, he uses a piece of Dark Energon to revive those among their kind who had fallen on Earth, forcing Optimus into a life-or-death struggle, all the while Megatron sneers this is only a taste of the main event. Fortunately, before Optimus can fall, the other Autobots come to his aid, with Darkwing employing his powerful punch, Bee his sword hands, and Alita her blasting, so that their leader is not reduced to one of the shambling undead, though, as Megatron had said, this is only the beginning, as if he intends to revive Cybertron next, then he must have a way to reach them, and to bring them here so they can crush the remaining Autobots, and as they all know, only one mode of transport will allow the sort of expediency Megatron desires: a space bridge. Luckily, while this has been happening, the human children have had their own adventure aboard Megatron's ship, allowing them to photograph several key pieces of evidence, namely the schematics for the very space bridge they are looking for, proving their worth, and allowing the Autobots to ground bridge the space bridge terminal on the moon. However, here they are faced with a rather troubling revelation. The Decepticons have already opened the space bridge, since with Darkwing not caring about Miko the way Bulkhead does, he did not join the others in the mission to fetch them from the Con's ship, meaning he did not damage their interstellar targeting system, and so Soundwave is able to open the portal quicker and easier than in canon. As a result, the heroes are met not by a few Decepticons, but by a Terracon horde, led by Megatron himself and two very familiar faces: Alpha Trion in his robotic beast mode, and the shambling, barely reconstructed form of Sentinel Prime. Knowing the game his former friend is playing, Optimus engages Megatron and Sentinel, while Bee and Alita are tasked with handling Alpha Trion. Meanwhile, Darkwing's job is to fight his way through the Terracon swarm and destroy the bridge, since if they can disconnect Cybertron from its Dark Energon source, maybe the dead will be allowed to rest again. Naturally, this is no easy business, as Megatron and his revived generals are all excellent warriors. Though refusing to let their adoptive home fall, Optimus gives his all to hold his two greatest foes at bay, while Alita and Bee show the synchronicity that can only come from a long-standing friendship. As for Darkwing, punching his inferiors is his hobby, so he is eventually able to fight his way to the terminal and begin rigging mining charges. This in turn draws Megatron's ire and saves Optimus's life, as just when the Decepticon warlord is about to strike down his rival, Starscream alerts him to Darkwing's actions, causing him to race off in pursuit of his former bully. Unfortunately for the Conqueror, it is too late, as with the bombs set, the Autobots retreat, and the space bridge explodes quite literally in Megatron's face, with the only reason the Decepticons as a whole and not destroyed is because Starscream's caution from his time leading the Cybertronian High Guard as fugitives sees the warship pull out before the explosion goes off. As the heroes had hoped, this also brings about the end of the Terracons, including Alpha Trion and Sentinel, who fall back into dormancy. Though, unbeknownst to anyone, a single Cybertronian does not return to the sleep of the grave, as wrapping their servo around the piece of dark energon Megatron had planted on the world to revive them all, they vow to persist and to have their revenge. Returning to Earth, Optimus is in mourning, as part of him had always clung to the hope that he and Megatron could find a way back to peace and brotherhood. B is likewise saddened to a lesser degree, though Alita had long since given up on the idea of D-16 still existing within Megatron, and so focuses on her duty, acting as Optimus's loyal second-in-command and caring for the human boy she'd been assigned, with it seeming this is a period of trial and error for all three protectors, as on top of dealing with external threats like the brief return of Skyquake, they must also learn to navigate their young charges. Luckily, Raph and B are on the same page almost immediately, though this does not mean they are without issue, as due to being the respective youngest members of their groups, they do tend to indulge in fun a bit too much when they should be working, like when they go off to race, or when they decide to try and make a new Steve out of junk from an old recycling plant. As for Alita and Jack, they're both serious enough to get along, even if Alita is loath to class their relationship as a partnership. Instead, she considers herself his babysitter, being quick to point out why he should listen to her, and flexing her history as a team leader to establish clear hierarchy, in which she protects and he obeys. And finally, there is Miko and Darkwing. They simply do not work, with Miko's fun-loving, cheeky nature rubbing up against Darkwing's harsh, cynical one, so that more than once she begs Optimus to give her a different protector. Anyone, since Darkwing is the worst. Though, this just makes the Prime chuckle, as he states that he once thought so too, but the guy grows on people with time. However, personality is not the only way these bonds are tested, as when Scraplets get into the base, it falls to the humans to handle the threat that their Cybertronian companions cannot, earning them some respect from the giant robot aliens, while in turn, when Wheeljack returns from the stars, now with a rather contemptuous view of the humans, it falls to B, Alita and Darkwing to put him in his place, and prove the value they place in their small squishy comrades, all the while exposing him as the Decepticon spy makeshift in disguise. And speaking of the Decepticons, the Autobots soon find themselves in a race against them when an energon harvester is located in Greece, with this leading to the introduction of two more Decepticons, Knockout and his partner Breakdown, who Darkwing faces off with, while Miko attempts to stop them from stealing the device, allowing the pair to gain some more grudging respect for each other's competence, though at the cost of the harvester's destruction, meaning the Autobots are forced to get by on what energon they have left. From here, the next two episodes are skipped, and both because of Alita, since unlike RC, she does not have faith in Jack and so monitors him more closely, catching his desire to drag race and putting a stop to it before it even begins. Likewise, and more crucially, Arachnid never shows up on Earth, since the Sentinel's former right-hand bot and an enemy of both the Autobots and Decepticons, she keeps a wide berth from the war, especially since she does not have as strong a personal rivalry with Alita. However, Alita can't prevent every bad thing from befalling her allies, as is the case when Optimus contracts Cybonic Plague, forcing her and B to infiltrate the Decepticon warship, as the plague was engineered by them, so if anyone will have the cure, they will. This leads to a rather shocking revelation, that Megatron himself is still alive, though in a coma after the space bridge's destruction, resulting in B making the selfless decision to enter the Warlord's mind with a cortical psychic patch, so the two of them can make a deal for the information to save Optimus. Here B is surprised to discover that Megatron's mental space is not some grand battlefield of the throne rooms of Kaon, but a dark energon mine, where he is continually tormented by cruel projections of Sentinel, Darkwing, Alita, and Orion Pax, as a part of him has never truly left the place where he was manipulated, deceived, and abused. Mistaking him for yet another of these mental manifestations, Megatron's first impulse is to attack B upon seeing him, though upon revealing that he is not one and wants to make a deal, Megatron agrees to listen. Unfortunately, this negotiation does not go well, as there is only one thing the Tyrant wants in exchange for saving Pax's life, his own back, stating that he will give the Autobots the formula if they receive a piece of dark energon for him, as that is what is required to revive him. Naturally, B will not do this, though using his annoying personality as a weapon, he does trick Megatron into briefly showing the formula to prove that he has it, allowing Ratchet, who is monitoring the situation, to take a snapshot before pulling the plug and rescuing B. However, one key difference is there is no time constraint, as Starscream is not aiming to remove Megatron's life support system, since it's demonstrated through Transformers 1 that Starscream at least had some semblance of loyalty, considering he and the rest of the High Guard did not betray the deceased primes by joining Sentinel, even at the cost of becoming outlaws. Logically, it therefore follows that Starscream would not try to usurp Megatron as its rightful ruler following their duel, though he would of course still resent him and welcome his fall at the hand of another. Though in this case that actually wouldn't matter much, as like in canon, Megatron would still escape into B's head and begin possessing him, so that shortly after Optimus' return to full strength, so is Megatron, reigniting the war, with its first battle going in the Khan's favour, as due to his loyalty, Starscream's match with Optimus is not interrupted, allowing him to seemingly win until Darkwing ground bridges in to punch him in the face and drag Prime to safety. Following this, there is a long stretch of episodes being skipped or going like canon, as Shadow Zone is skipped due to Starscream being loyal, as is Crisscross thanks to Arachnid's absence, while Operation Breakdown follows the canon progression since nothing there would logically change. Next is Metal Attraction, which is skipped due to a Decepticon victory, since with no Arachnid to undercut Breakdown, he retrieves the Polarity Gauntlet without issue, while Rock Bottom doesn't happen because Megatron has no need to bring Starscream to the mine to expose his treachery and then kill him, meaning the Autobots never follow. But hey, at least Miku gets to go to a Slash Monkey concert, since who doesn't love obscure Bulgarian shriek metal? And then there is my personal favourite episode of Season 1, Partners, which is a perfect storm of skippage, since literally every aspect of it is absent, with no Arachnid, a loyal Starscream who'd never tried to affect the Autobots, and no RC or Cliffjumper to fuel the vengeance plot. Finally, though, something does change when Darkwing and Breakdown fight over a Cybertronian data cylinder, as while Miku does tag along like in canon to avoid chores, resulting in her accidentally uploading the info into Darkwing's processor, due to him having a lower care factor for her life than Bulkhead, though perhaps a greater care factor than he might want to admit, Darkwing takes the time to get the cylinder before grabbing Miku and returning to base, meaning when the formula for Synthen threatens to overwhelm him, Ratchet is able to return it to the cylinder and save his life, while allowing the Dockbot to hold on to the formula for later study. Though he won't be alone, as due to Optimus having always been a massive nerd for any old Cybertronian history, myth or science as seen by his frequent trespasses into the Hall of Records back in Iacon, he is quick to help Ratchet study the data cylinder's information, meaning when he wants to use himself as a test subject, Optimus refuses, claiming that he will do it instead since his old friend is too valuable to risk. This forces Ratchet to employ more careful testing than if it were his life on the line, allowing him to identify the flaws of Synthen earlier, as while Optimus becomes stronger and more energized, he also develops an arrogant and hot-headed streak akin to Orion Pax on his worst day, with this encouraging the pair to shelf the project for now, since nothing was lost and everything is okay. Or at least it would be if not for the itty-bitty issue that the world is ending. Or at least, Optimus seems to believe it is, as a prophecy from the Covenant of Primus states that when 47 planets align, a terrible conflict will begin, and the weak will fall to a rising darkness. However, unlike the regular Prime timeline where Megatron revels in his villainy, this one does not see himself as a rising darkness, or any sort of darkness in fact, but as a maligned hero, while also being distinctly distrustful of false prophets. Furthermore, he does not make any plans to seek more Dark Energon in space, since after being revived from his coma by it, he has come to realize that it is the blood of Unicron compelling him to serve the Dark God, something the former cogless miner would rather die than contemplate, having long ago vowed to never trust another so-called leader ever again. As a result, there is sadly no awesome Optimus vs Megatron volcano fight, though when Dark Energon begins spewing from the mountain, both leaders come to the same conclusion. This world is Unicron, and if they're to have any chance of defeating the monster planet, it will have to be together. While this is far from welcome news to the Autobots or Megatron, Optimus can't help but be a little pleased, faintly smiling that they're together again, though he does not offer their iconic fist bump, since while he is happy, he knows who he is dealing with, and has not forgotten all that has transpired between them. Additionally, before they embark on this dangerous mission, he makes sure to give Miku the key to Vector Sigma, since in this timeline, she is the one who reminds him of his younger self. Making use of the knowledge gained from him being connected to Dark Energon, the Autobots along with Megatron and his most trusted Decepticon lieutenants like Starscream and Soundwave then descend into the core of the planet itself, since if they wish to defeat Unicron, they must get Optimus and Megatron to his spark chamber, as they will require Megatron's Dark Energon-laced spark to open it, and Optimus's Matrix of Leadership to vanquish the Dark God. Unfortunately, this is not an easy feat, as upon sensing the intruders, Unicron creates thousands of avatars of himself to descend upon them, turning the infiltration into a battle, as everyone must put all they have into surviving a clash with a foe whose power and resources seemingly know no end. At the head of this naturally stands both Optimus and Megatron, each powerful in their own right, but with an unmatched synergy born both from their time as enemies analyzing each other's styles, and also from their deeper, long-buried bond of brotherhood, giving them an instinctual understanding of the other. More than once, this proves the difference between life and death, so that eventually the Autobot-Decepticon alliance reaches the chamber, forcing the two leaders to enter alone, while their comrades hold the line outside. Here they come face to face with the monster god himself, who sneers that two lowly miners will die deep underground. Though refusing to be intimidated by him as they refuse to be intimidated by Sentinel, they stand together, declaring that Unicron has no power over them, before unleashing the might of the Matrix of Leadership. Outside, B and Alita feel something, not just in their sparks, but in their T-cogs, a pull that can only be called cosmic, so that as the Unicron avatars fall, signaling the end of the battle, the two of them are the first to pass into the chamber. However, what meets their optics is a sight neither had ever thought to see again, as kneeling together, clearly exhausted, are the forms of Orion Pax and D-16. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.